Well, welcome everybody. I am so excited to bring to you today another Your Story Matters conversation. Today we have Tracie. Tracie was a corporate executive, a single mom, working in New York City in the investment banking industry. Her stress was at a really high level, which was taking a huge toll on her health. Now, being in the financial industry, I was there for 18 years, and that stress of being in an accounting firm took a toll on my health too. So I can totally sympathize in a lot of ways. Tracie was diagnosed with breast cancer in this time. And in that moment, she experienced a divine intervention and knew that she had to make some radical changes in her life to reclaim her life. She was a mom, so she had to, like, what do I do? Like, I need to be able to be here for my son. So today she's going to be sharing her journey with us in that season of her life and how she made some radical shifts that has saved her, and she is now taking her knowledge and giving it back to others. And I am so honored to have Tracie here. So let's just start by painting the picture of where you were, Tracie, at when the stresses of your life had made that, like, you were at that breaking point and you were just like, okay, enough's enough. I do not like this life. I do not like what the doctors are telling me. And I just want to return to sender. This is not my portion. This is not how my life is intended. And there's so much more that has been placed in my heart. So tell us, like, wherever you want to start, Tracie, let's just dive into your story, because I think there's a lot of learning and growth that we can all glean from this transformation that you've incurred.
Sure. So just to start off, I kept telling myself, I need a break, I need a break, I need a break. And it was something that I said out loud a lot. So I got my break. As you mentioned, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, but one day I was standing in the shower and I had a sharp pain rush through my right breast. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, what is this? I had never felt anything like that before. So I said, okay, let me go to the doctor and see what's happening. But I say it was divine intervention when that happened. And I went to the doctor, and my doctor says, well, I don't think there's anything to worry about. However, let's get you a mammogram and see what's going on. So I had my first mammogram and I got a call and they said, listen, you have to come back in because this one is inconclusive. We're not really sure what's happening with that mammogram. So you have to come back in, and this time we're going to do a 3D mammogram. So they did a 3D mammogram and they saw that I had 2 different tumors in 2 different spots on my right breast. And I said, okay, I was still thinking, this is nothing, and I thought that, I lived my life pretty well, right? Aside from the stress that I was experiencing in the financial services industry, as you mentioned, I thought that I lived pretty well. I won't say that I ate healthy, but I thought it was healthy at the time because it was just what my family normally ate. So I was eating things and it was, prepared food. It wasn't like food out of a box or anything, but it still wasn't healthy. I know that today. But I said, okay, I went through the process with the doctors, and lo and behold, when they did the first biopsy, they said, okay, you have to come for a second biopsy. And then when you come back for the second biopsy, we'll have the results of the first, because they were in 2 different places and they couldn't get to them in the same manner. So that's why they made me come back. So when I went for the second biopsy, as I'm laying stiff on the table, the nurse is rubbing my arm and the doctor says to me, we have the results from the first and there is cancer. And I have to lay stiff on this table and the tears are just streaming down my face. And the nurse is rubbing my arm. And I think that made me cry a little bit more, when you just have that support and that comfort. And I just kind of let the tears stream, but I couldn't move because they were doing the second biopsy. And I'm thinking, Lord, how did this happen? Why did this happen? All the thoughts that play through your mind. What did I do, to warrant, cancer kind of taking over a bit in my body? So I'm like, what is this? What is going on? So I said, okay, let me just breathe for a minute and just get this second biopsy done. And then after that was over, I got to my car, and my cousin, who always calls me in the right moments, that was, to me, God sending her to me. She said, what's going on? I just feel something's going on. And I said, yeah, I just came from the hospital. And the first biopsy, she knew what was happening, but she just said, I feel like there's something more today. And I said, the first biopsy came back with cancer. And she said the same thing that I was thinking on the table. She said, just breathe. Everything is going to be all right. So I'm like, okay, let me just breathe. And then when I got home, I got on my knees. That was the first thing that I did. God, show me what I'm supposed to be doing here. Why is this happening? And show me what I'm supposed to do. So I went into research mode. And lo and behold, I just started falling in love with everything that I was seeing, just how we're supposed to eat and exercise. And I said, wow, like this is amazing. I never knew that food was this healing. I never knew that exercise made such an impact on your body. I exercised when I felt like it, or when I could make the time, or when I thought I could make the time because I was in financial services and just felt like I was so busy rushing back and forth. But I want to go back a little bit because I want to tell you about something that happened to me a month prior to me finding out that I had cancer. So remember, I was in research mode, but I want to take you back. So it was Hurricane Sandy in the US, and it hit New Jersey. I was in New Jersey at the time, and it hit New Jersey pretty hard. And the night of the storm, the power went out. I put candles on. Me and my son, I had a sectional sofa, and me and my son were laying on the sofa watching the Cars movie on a portable DVD player because I had charged that DVD player up and I was ready. I was like, we're just gonna watch movies all night and we'll snuggle up on the couch with blankets and stay warm. So my son fell asleep. Now remember, the power's out. The DVD player goes off. He fell asleep. The candles are still burning, but my house lit up. There was an illumination that happened in my house. It was so much light. It was almost like it was nighttime, but it was almost like it was daytime inside my house. And I literally felt like a dome coming down over my house. It was like you could feel something covering my whole house. And the reason why I was praying to God, I was saying to him, please don't, my neighbor had this rotten tree in her yard. And I was praying over her house and I was praying over mine. I'm like, Lord, please don't let this tree fall, because it was so damaged. And she was an elderly lady and she couldn't really do anything about the tree. So I kept saying, Lord, please don't let this tree fall, not on her house, not on mine. Sustain this tree, sustain our households. And that light came and that dome came down on my house. And I really felt this. I felt, something surrounding my home. So then after I prayed, I fell asleep. And when I woke up the next morning, I went outside and that tree was intact and her house was fine and my house was fine. Now, mind you, trees all around my town were down, but everything was fine. Only a small piece of our shared fence came down. Wow. That was it. Everything else around us on our homes was fine. So I thought, at that moment, I said, wow, God is so amazing. And what I thought in that moment was, he just kept saying, because of your faith, I have you. I've got you. What I didn't realize is what was going to happen the next month. God was telling me that I got you. And I'm sorry, I'm going to tear up, but I love the Lord. I'm just going to have to say that. But he was telling me that I got you for what was to come.
That's right.
He was really saying, this storm is nothing, but I got you through it all. So he got me through that storm. And then the next storm was coming, but he was saying to me, I got you. So after I got on my knees, I told you, I got on my knees when I got home and I started praying about the cancer. And I'm like, God, what am I supposed to be doing here? So as I started, he just told me to dive in, research, see why these things are happening, help your body, serve your body better. You're not taking care of my temple is what he was really telling me. Wow. But as my family members were coming by, as I would think about Hurricane Sandy and think about what he showed me in that moment and how powerful it felt to me, even when I didn't even know that cancer was coming, I kept going back to that moment. And every time I would feel a little weary about having to go to the doctors, and I decided to get a mastectomy and having to have that mastectomy and what was going to come after that, I said, he's got me. Right. And when my family members were coming over and they were crying, and I said to them, it's okay, like I'm fine, because they were like, why are you better than us? And I started to tell everybody that story because I'm like, it's because of what he showed me. So I know that I'm going to be okay. And I know that this was meant for something greater.
Mm.
So I went through the process of having the mastectomy. Um, and I had my mastectomy, and then the doctors called me and said, you have to come back for a second surgery, because when we did the mastectomy, when we took the tissue out, we found some invasion, and now we need to go back in and take lymph nodes and make sure that they're okay. But when that happened, I'm like, I'm not even worried about that part of it, because I was like, he's got this. And everything that's happening, he's showing me more and more about, and again, I'm researching, he's just showing me more and more about food and exercise. So I'm like, okay, he's got this. I went back, I got my lymph nodes removed, and they were negative. Everything was negative in the lymph nodes. So I said, okay, I'm gonna dive in again. God, what are you showing me? So I kept doing all the research, and I'm like, I love this. I started geeking out on food and exercise, and I started exercising at, like, I'm such an exercise junkie now, like so I'm like, I just started geeking out on it. I'm like, I absolutely love this. And then I joined this program called Transform Her through an organization called Women Empowered International. And it was really about taking a look at your life. So as I'm doing all this research and I'm talking to God, I'm going through this program as well. And the light bulb went off. It was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And then I started thinking about, remember I told you, I kept saying, I need a break, I need a break, I need a break. Well,
Yeah.
God was giving me the break really to set me up for what the next portion of my life was going to look like. So it wasn't that he needed to give me that drastic break, because I was so involved in the financial services industry. Had he not, him knowing his child, right? Had he not, I wouldn't have stopped.
Right.
Do the
But you're
things that,
also single mom, so making a huge shift like that without being forced to do it,
yeah,
that the security and the dependence that you have on that income to support your family, like
yeah,
that would have been a huge, like you would need something drastic to make that shift.
yeah, absolutely. And when I think about it, Stacey, too, it was like I was in the wrong, like I was in the wrong space the whole time. And I was enjoying too much of making good money, right? And he said, that's not your purpose. You're losing, what you're meant for. You're not here for that. And I grew up in a church. I was made to serve. I served all the time in my church. And he's like, you're not serving anybody in this industry. You're not being of service in this industry, other than my beautiful staff, because I love them. I love people. But other than that, I wasn't really serving. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to. I wasn't doing any real good from that. So
Right.
he was shifting me, but it had to be that way. So I tell people, really, finding out that I had breast cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it made me stop and it made me listen to him. And I had a quote in my bathroom at the time that said, God whispers, it said, make sure to listen to God's whisper while the world is loud. And I was like, it's so profound. And I had it in my bathroom because that was my only quiet time. So I was like, this is where I have to listen, right? As a parent, a lot of times that's the only place that you can get your peace and quiet. So that's why I had it there, so I could remind myself to listen to him while everything else was so noisy around me. So he was telling me to stop and listen. That's really what it was all about. So I decided to go to Health Coach Institute and get my health coaching certification and take their advanced nutrition classes, and then move on to do personal training. And I just started really doing the personal training for myself first, because I was like, let me just get into this and figure out how to move my body and how to take care of my body with what I learned with coaching. And then I said, okay, I need to do this for women. And I started working at a gym before COVID, and then COVID happened, and then I started doing it online. But it really was the best experience of my life, because I wouldn't be here today as a coach and a trainer and a speaker, because I do, and a TV show host as well on health, if I had not gone through the cancer. So it really is the best thing. And when you're going through it, I won't say it wasn't difficult, right? Because it's difficult. You
Yeah.
know, it's an experience. And with the surgeries, and I had never, other than having a C-section when my son was born, I had never had surgery. I had never been to the hospital for anything
Mhm.
other than the birth of my child. So I didn't even know what that looked like. You know, I didn't know about taking all medicine, and I didn't know about that. And then after the surgery and all of that, the oncologist gave me a drug called tamoxifen. And they said, you know, we want to stop your estrogen from producing. So this experience too showed me that I had too much. I was producing too much estrogen because my tumors were built on estrogen. And
Wow.
it showed me that as well. And then I started taking this drug, and the things that were happening to my body, I told my oncologist, after a year and a couple of months of taking it, I won't do this anymore. Because I said, I had already been shown what I'm meant to do, and I already know how good food is. I just changed all of my habits. That's it. I had changed what I eat on a daily basis, and I exercise. And I am now, how long has it been now? 9 years, cancer free. I always say
Wow.
cancer free and not survivor. Thank you. I
So
always say cancer free though. I hate using the word survivor because it sounds like, you know, you might get it again. For me, that's so I
yeah,
always say I'm cancer free, and that's it.
that's so
So
good. So good.
yeah,
Did you have to go through like radiation or any of that kind of stuff?
I did it because I took the drastic route, and I
Mhm.
said I'm just going to get the mastectomy. I want it out, and I wasn't well endowed, and I
Mhm.
had tumors in two different places. So I said if I get a lumpectomy, it's just going to look awkward because I just didn't have, you know, the enough breast really to be able to take the tumors out and still have enough to feel like myself, is what I thought in that moment. And I want to talk about that too a little bit. So I said, you know, I just want it out. Take it off, do the full mastectomy, and then I won't do the chemo and I won't do the radiation because of me just deciding to take it out. And then once the lymph nodes were free of cancer, they said, okay, so you don't need radiation or chemo because it had not spread. So I was grateful for that. But that it definitely was divine intervention in that shower, because when they initially started looking at it, they said I was at a 0 on the level for cancer. They said I was at a 0, and then, or the stage rather. And then once they took it out, they said it was stage 1 because there was some invasion in the tissue, which is why they went back and said, okay, you know, we're going to look at your lymph nodes now. So that was God talking to me the whole time, the month
Mhm.
before with the storm incident, and then in the shower. It was really him saying, you know, wake up. I need you to pay attention, not just to your body, but to your whole life. You
Yes.
know? Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about that story is that like God will show up for any one of us in those powerful ways. Like
Yeah.
we hear these stories all the time. You're like, oh, I'd love to have an experience like that of God, but he will show up the way we need him to show up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not all of us are able or would be capable of experiencing that illumination in your living room that day and not be struck by fear, but
Yeah.
you were able to like take that illumination and know it was God protecting and guiding you.
Mhm.
And that is so powerful. I've had, when I look back, I did not grow up in the church. I did not have that gift or that blessing of having those roots grounded into me as a young child. Jesus Christ was a swear word growing up for me. And so I had no idea, but I remember I was in a really bad car accident once. I'd fallen asleep at the wheel. And then when I had opened my eyes, I was driving up a guardrail.
Oh,
And yeah, it was just like that one passenger side, the front left tire, right tire was like hit this guardrail. And I was going about, I would say 80 miles, 85 miles an hour.
mhm.
So I'd hit that guardrail and I literally hit the skies. I went head over tail, like my car flipped back to front 3 times in the air before I actually landed on the
Oh,
roof
wow.
in the ditch. I had my almost 2-year-old daughter with me. And as a young mom, I was like, oh, she's so uncomfortable. I'll let her sit in the passenger seat with, I didn't even have her buckled in or anything. Like a foolish mother
Oh,
that I
wow.
was. And all I can remember in that moment like I didn't know God yet. I had lost my mom. I was a fish out of water. Like I was like just trying to survive. And at that particular situation, I was running away from a whole bunch of garbage in my life. And
Wow.
God's like, no, no, stop the run. You're going to go back and we're going to learn from all of this stuff, but you cannot run if you want to have an experience with me. And
Yeah.
when I was in that car accident, when I was up in the sky, I just remember, just prior to that moment, my spirit moment was, you'd be more comfortable if you took your seatbelt off. So my 2-year-old wasn't strapped in, but I was.
Right.
And just before I fell asleep, I had this prompting in my spirit, be like, just take your seatbelt off, you'd be more comfortable. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Like I was having a conversation with my delusional self. And so I took my seatbelt off, and when I hit the skies, I just remember like, okay, God, if you're ready for me, that's one thing, but you're not taking my little girl. And
Mhm.
I threw my body over on top of her in the passenger seat, and I grabbed her little tiny body and I pulled her in tight to my chest, and I tried to keep my head tucked and my knees up. So if there was any glass or anything like that shattering around, that I was going to be her bodyguard, that
Yeah.
she would not walk away hurt or damaged.
Wow.
And when we hit the roof in the ditch, it was like a deep, deep ditch. And it was February, so there was a whole bunch of snow where we were. And in the movies, cars blow up. Like when you hit an accident like that, you're going to be set on fire. So that's all I could think of, as just getting out of the car. I'm so disorientated because everything's upside down and I don't know what just happened. I don't know if my baby's alive or dead in my arms. I went to go run up to the highway because I seen a couple cars drive by, and I took 2 steps and I was waist deep in snow. I dropped my baby in a snowbank, which she started crying, which was like, yes, she's alive. So this is good. And
Thank God.
so I grabbed her, and then I was like, okay, my car's going to blow up. I don't know how long I'm going to be outside for. I went back to get the blankets and snowsuits and toques and whatever, because I didn't know how long we were going to be outside for. And as I was grabbing my stuff, those 2 cars that drove by turned around and came back. They seen my light show,
Mm.
and they came back. One of them sat with us as we were waiting for the paramedics, an hour and a half to get to me. We're on a secondary highway in the middle of no man's land, and it took the ambulance an hour and a half to get to me, and not a single other vehicle drove by in that time frame. Not
Wow.
one. So I'm like, oh, hey, there's got to be a God. All right, how do I get your number? Like, that for me was my turning point of
Yeah.
just knowing that there's got to be a bigger dimension. Like my whole back hit the windshield and blew the whole windshield right out. The cops looked at my car, my accident, and he says, I could give you a ticket for not having your child in a car seat, but I think you've learned your lesson. You should have been thrown from that car and squashed like a pancake.
Yeah.
There's no reason why I should have been kept in that vehicle. I smashed the whole windshield out with my back. We
Wow.
walked away without any whiplash, which blows my mind, without any broken wounds. I only had a bruise on my butt cheek from the steering wheel from when I threw myself over onto my daughter. Like I still look back at that situation, and I'm like, okay, God. Well, because my mom taught me, and whenever trouble comes, you pack the car and you run. That's what we used to do our whole entire lives. And God's like, stop the run. That's enough. We need to break this generational habit or whatever the heck that was. I had to go back and face the music of all my troubles and deal with it. And I'm so glad that I did. It wasn't easy by all means. Like similar, struggle in a lot of ways when it came to like, bearing your soul and really putting all your reliance on him to help guide you through all of the different scenarios that he wants to bring us through.
Yeah.
My story did not end that day. It began that day. And so I'm so grateful for that car accident, even though it was one of the most scariest things I've ever endured in my life. And I do not make a very good passenger today because of it.
I can imagine. But let's look at how awesome that is, right? That he showed himself to you in a way that you recognize, like you said, that you recognized and said, okay, there has to be what's greater than me, right? What's greater than this earth, and there has to be because of what you experienced. So those are always the things that I look at, because I'm like, if people don't recognize the divine, they have to look at the things that are happening in this world and the miracles that happen. I know we, on the news, we see all the bad, but there are a lot of miracles out there too that that are just not heard of as much, but they happen. And that's really God showing up. And I even think, like, even in the times of all of the turmoil, like now, this pandemic, right?
Right.
To me, that's just God showing us, like, I need you to be closer to me.
That's right.
Really. I'm bigger than this,
Yeah.
and I don't think God brought it to us, but I think that he said, okay, since this was put here, I need you to see who I am. The world was shut down. Do you know how, like, big that is? It's huge. And if people don't recognize, like, that they should have been closer to God in these moments, and this is like more to come, right? They should be closer to God in these moments.
That's right.
Because he's saying, I'm here for you no matter what. And
That's right.
I'm bigger than all that's happening in this world. I made this world, so I just
And he's
I,
already won the battle, right? Like,
yeah.
and I know that, as I was nurturing my relationship with Christ, there's always been a season, a struggle, like being on and off the fence, because you fight with the flesh, and then you're just like, you get a taste of the spirit, and you're like, I want more of this, but then the flesh kind of wants to pull you back.
Yeah.
Sometimes in my walk, I've sat on the fence, and I'm like, one leg's on one side, one leg's on the other, and I'm like, okay, God. But right now, in the season that we're in this life, like, we can't sit on the fence. You either in or you're out. And we have to make that choice of, like, going deeper and being anchored in Christ, because he is the one that's already won the victory. He goes before us and fights our battles for us. And so I don't know about the rest of you, but I definitely do not want to be on the losing team. That Goliath, he gonna come down. God's promise is to protect us and to fight our battles. And when we can surrender our hearts to him, he will show up in mighty and miraculous ways. And so we just have to have a softened spirit to him and what he has for us. He did not put us in this earth for this day and age without a purpose in mind.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful that I've gone through everything that I've gone through, and that I've learned what I've had to learn, so that I can have that heart centered on him, and so that I can be a light in this dark place. Like, God put me in this place for such a time as this, just as you do.
Yeah.
So good.
I so agree with you. I so agree with you on that. And I, like you said, I'm so grateful for all the experiences, good and bad. They're lessons. They're really just lessons, and they're just really meant to bring us closer to him. And in those moments, I think the bad ones are the better ones, right? Because in those moments, you listen more, you pay attention more. When things are good, you might slow down a little bit with, okay, I know that you're there, God, and I love you, but you may not listen as much, and you might miss something. But when those bad moments come, you really pay attention a lot more. So I'm grateful for them. Really grateful.
It keeps us humble, right? Because if we go through life and we have all this success, we typically don't give God the credit that he deserves. That success wouldn't be there without him. And so then we end up patting ourselves on the back, or, look at me. And especially in today's world with social media, everything's like pointing at us, right? Like, and we're having to put ourselves out there in ways that, I don't know, that I have always wrestled with that. So it just in a lot of ways. But I always want to just keep my heart close to him, and I'm not perfect at it, but that's not God's call. It's like, we're not to be perfect. He didn't come here for a perfect world. He came for all of us misfits and our broken people, and all the, I call my, the ones that were thrown in the gutter. Like, I was a gutter girl. Like, I was just thrown to the wayside. And he just comes and he goes out of his way to pluck us out and to transform our lives and our
Yeah.
hearts, and gives us purpose. And if we can just tap into just a piece of what he has in store for us, then
Yeah.
our lives are going to be so much more at ease. Like we have the peace that surpasses all understanding. Like you can't go through a cancer scenario and have peace in your heart like you did, like you said, with your family coming like, why are you so much better than we are? Right? Because
Yeah.
God has showered you with his peace that is beyond our understanding. The human mind
Yeah.
can't fathom it.
I can remember like throughout all of my life, like this has been my saying forever. I will not let anybody rob me of my joy,
Oh,
because I know that happiness is temporary, right? It's a temporary thing. It happens. And then, you have those highs and lows, but I really have joy in my heart. And that's the bigger thing. And like you said, that peace, the peace and the joy, that you can't get that from anywhere else but God. Like that doesn't come from anywhere else. And I know like through everything I'm going through, all the highs and the lows, like he's right there. So no matter what's happening, I still have joy because I know who he is. I said to my minister after I had gone through the cancer and I was giving a testimony in church, but I said to him, I said, I wish people knew what I knew. I wish everybody knew what I knew, just that he is real. And that he says in his word, I will not leave you and I will not forsake you. And he means it. He is a faithful God. And I said, I wish people just knew that. I wish everybody could feel what I feel, because it's just so real. He really is real. And because we can't see him or touch him, it's okay. He's there. You just got to listen and pay attention to the signs that he sends us in some big ways and some small ways every day.
Absolutely. He's
Yeah.
always at work. Always.
Yeah.
He never
Yeah.
takes a vacation. He might rest on a day or two, but like he
Yeah.
never takes a vacation. He's always at work.
Exactly.
So good. I am so honored that you shared that story, and just to be able to give God the glory of showering you with that peace and preparing you for that second storm, by just showing himself real to you in that hurricane storm. Like that is a phenomenal story. I absolutely adore how he showed up in such a tangible way for you.
Yeah.
And has your neighbor taken care of that dead old tree yet?
You know that, okay, so I go back to New Jersey quite often. I live in North Carolina now, but that was 8 years. I was still there in that same house for 8 years after having cancer and after that storm. But I went back. That tree's still there. That tree's still
Wow.
standing, and it's still standing strong. It's a huge tree, and you clearly see all like the mold and everything on this tree, but that tree is still standing strong today. And I believe that tree's not going anywhere just because of the prayers. Yeah, like I don't think it's going anywhere. I think God is saying, I'm gonna, and that neighbor is still there. She's still in her house. So thank God, it's still there, but I don't think it's going anywhere. I think he's, put a blessing on that tree.
And he
For
can,
sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. That's so
Yeah.
good. Well, Tracie, I have absolutely adored this conversation, and just how you have been able to take your knowledge and heal yourself. So you went and got certified as a nutritionist. Is
As
that
a health coach.
health
I
coach? And
did
you
advanced nutrition
fitness?
classes. Yeah.
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 So how are you taking all that you've learned now and serving your clients?
So, so I tell people to keep it simple. I have a 90-day program that I do with people, and it's a 90-day meal plan, a 90-day fitness plan, and then it includes weekly coaching in there. But I just tell people to keep it simple at first, because that's what I did. I am by no means a cook, right? So I keep it simple. I get just the pure whole foods, natural foods, all the fruits and vegetables I can get, and I keep the carbs simple. I tell people to keep it simple, and I show them, what your diet is supposed to consist of is a good fat, a good protein, and good fiber, which comes from the carbohydrates. And if you keep it simple that way and you think about, okay, so what are those foods and how can I incorporate them into my daily life? And that's what my meal plan is all about. But even when I'm speaking to people, I just tell them, listen, start off simple. It doesn't have to be so complicated, just grab a whole bunch of fruit and vegetables that you like, make it colorful, right? Because they always tell you, right, when you're learning about your fruits and vegetables, as colorful as you can make it means you're getting the maximum amount of vitamins and minerals from your food, and just, start there. So that's the biggest thing. That's really what I start with, because I think food is 80% of it. Fitness is wonderful. I absolutely love it. But you have to start with the food. The food is the bigger portion of staying healthy.
It's like that good old phrase, it's like you can't outrun a bad diet.
Right, exactly.
So I joke about it quite often, but I was like, used to say that I was allergic to exercise. Who wants to sweat? And there was a season where I was addicted to that movement. And that's the crazy part, is that once, like, it's a struggle to get started, but once you actually just start moving, even if it's just like 10 or 15 minutes a day, then your body will start to crave it. And then you'll want more and more. Like you said, you became a junkie.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen overnight. Like it was like that drudging, like, oh, I know I got to do this, but I really don't like to do this. And what do I do? And how do I do that? And all the things, right? But then once you kind of get, your body starts to crave it, you're just into like, I'll try anything. Like I can move my body. If it'll move that way, then let's do it. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So good.
And I have to tell you, like I'm 50 now.
Oh, you look
Soon to be
amazing.
51. Thank you. Thank you. But soon to be 51 in March. But I exercise so much more than I ever did in my 20s, right? Because now it's every day for me. I even say that I do active rest days. So on my rest days, which is usually Saturday, I'm walking, I may be doing some ab work, but it's never that I never get that movement in, because I just love it that much. It energizes me. It makes me feel really good. I have muscle, right? Like I have muscle at 50, and I can still run with my son and shoot hoops and do those things. So when I even look at it from that perspective, like what I'm able to do now, especially, just getting older, but knowing that it comes from just training my body to be able to move that way. So I can jump and I can run and I can, so that feels good. It just feels good.
Yeah, especially like when you get to that season of life, like you're 50, like you should be super proud of yourself to be still out there shooting hoops.
Yeah.
My father-in-law, he's 69, he'll be 70 this year. Last summer he came out with us and he was wake surfing with the teenagers. I'm like, you go, Gramps, like that is amazing. And he's always been really active and takes really good care of himself. And so it's just really inspiring to see as we age that we don't have to lose our mobility. We don't have to lose our quality of life. If anything, we are wiser, we can make better choices, and we just don't care about what the world thinks anymore. We're going to do what's going to serve us the best, right?
That's right. I mean, I have my 92-year-old grandmother lives alone. She still goes for walks, so yeah.
Good for her. That is so remarkable. My husband's grandma, like his whole bloodline is like rock solid. His grandma's 95, and just a few months ago she was still driving, like she'd go and drive her go and pick up her girlfriends and take them to church, and
I love it.
But unfortunately she went and locked herself up. She pushed the child lock in her car and she locked herself in the back seat, and so she was climbing from the back seat to the front to get herself out of her vehicle, and she slipped a rib. And when you're not in your 90s, like things are a lot harder to recover from like that. And she was in excruciating pain, and she got dehydrated, and then she's now, like, her health kind of deteriorated. She was asking to go to the hospice, like, but now she's back home, she's gaining her weight back and hydrated and starting to move around, more availabilities for her. So it just blows my mind that if you stop living, you'll stop living. Right? Like we
Yes,
have to keep moving and taking care of the temple that God's given us, and
absolutely.
it's a journey.
Yeah.
So Tracie, if anyone here is inspired by your amazing story and they want to be like, hey, this girl, if she can transform her life and overcome cancer and all the things and just live her best life in her 50s, and they want to work with you, how do they get in touch with you, love?
They can reach me on Facebook. I am Tracie Randolph on Facebook. They can reach me on Instagram. I am the_reset_coach, or they can email me at tracier@theresetglobal.com, or they can go to my landing page is www.workwiththeresetcoach.com.
Oh, I love that. Work with the Reset Coach. That is amazing. I
Thanks.
will definitely post all of those handles here within the video, so it's easy for people to catch all of those little details without
Okay.
having to rewind and pause and rewind.
Thank you.
I'll make it available here in the bottom. But thank you so much for sharing your story. And I am so honored that you shared your spiritual experience, because I think that needs to be shared more and more in today's world. So many of us are hungry for something to believe in, something to put our hope in. And if they can be inspired by just allowing themselves to cross the fence line
Yeah.
and put their hope in Jesus Christ, then we've done our job by sharing our story and the power that he has, what he has done in our personal lives,
Mhm.
he can do in yours as well. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been amazing.
Yeah, and I do hope to Tracie is in the app, so you can totally look her up and hit her up here in this Beautiful You community. So if you don't want to check her on the other handles, you can always send her a message here within the Beautiful You community as well. She'll be more than happy to lead you on whatever path journey, health healing journey that you are on. So
Absolutely.
thank you, darling. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you as well.
Have a great one. Bye.
You too.